Hi, I'm Jen from the Easy Alley Guide, and in this video, I'm going to walk you through how to use the Audit Checklist Builder to build a checklist, do a quick audit, and get a report. To access this, we go to the Easy Alley Guide website. Under the Done For You menu, we find Audit Checklist Builder. At the top are instructions. These written instructions are kept up to date, so please make sure to read them. Under the heading Select Checklist Type, we have the label Checklist Purpose. Here we can select whether the purpose is content, like we are inputting a blog or a regular web page, and we just want to check what our content is, not necessarily do a comprehensive edit of the whole page. Design, whether you're evaluating a mock-up and you want to see whether it's meeting criteria or not. And development for full page testing. This will include all of the WCAG criteria. And finally, we have quick audit for single page. This is a reduced scope audit, but it still finds a lot of key accessibility issues without getting into all of the weeds. I'm going to select development full page testing. Under the Include Best Practices label, we have yes and no. If you select no, which is the default, then it will only include the WCAG criteria and none of the best practices. If you select yes, it will first list the WCAG criteria and then it will list best practices. And finally, we have the criteria label, and under this we can select the level of WCAG. 2.0 level AA, 2.1 level AA, and 2.2 level AA. So if I were to select just 2.0 AA, I'll then click Build Checklist. This will now build out a checklist. So we'll get another heading, which is Your Checklist, and this describes the different columns that are included with the checklist. So here we have the criteria. For example, the first one is 1.1.1, non-text content. The second column is how often. This criteria shows up as an issue very often in accessibility audits. A simplified explanation of this criteria. In this case, images and meaningful icons need to have appropriate context-sensitive alternative text. On many websites that I audit, there are issues with the alternative text. How to test. Automated checkers can tell you whether or not alt text is present. They cannot tell you whether or not that alt text is appropriate. Conformance level. This is a drop-down menu for you to fill out. It starts out as not tested, and it includes supports, which means it passed, partially supports, which means, in this case, for alt text, some of the images were good and some of the images were not. Does not support means basically nothing went well. And not applicable means, for example, for images, if you found no images on the page, well, then it's not applicable. If you want to, you can use the button Pre-fill Conformance Level column, which is just above the table. This button will pre-fill all of the conformance levels for you to what happens most often. For example, on alt text, it will pre-fill in partially supports because most often when you audit a website, some of the images will be okay and some won't. And finally is the issue source column. This again contains a drop-down menu, and in this column, you will fill out what was the source of the issue. There are three potential sources: content, theme, and website add-on. Content would be very often the problem in the case of alt text on images. The author who was creating the page or post just didn't fill in appropriate alt text. But it could also be a theme issue. Some themes put in both the alt text and the title. The theme is the one inserting the title, and that is not correct. So the issue source would actually be the theme. If there was both improper alt text, as in poorly written, for the circumstance, and the theme was injecting titles, then we would want to select both content and theme. The third source is website add-on. This might be the example if you were embedding a YouTube video and YouTube was providing poor alt text or improper tagging for the image that it was inserting. Once you have filled in all of the various criteria that you're doing for the test, you will get to the bottom. Full page testing includes a lot. There is a checkbox here for whether I wish to include the simplified explanation column in the report that gets generated. If I just generate the report without checking that box, when I get down to each of the criteria, it won't have a simplified explanation. If I do check to include it and I generate the report, then it will include the simplified explanation with the testing information. Whether or not you want to include the simplified explanation generally depends on who you are preparing the report for. If you want the people that you're preparing it for to understand it a little bit better, then you may want to include the simplified explanation, especially if they don't have a lot of previous accessibility background. You'll also note that each of the headings contains a link. This is the link to the W3C WCAG guideline. So let's go back and do another type of test, one that's shorter. Under checklist purpose, I'm going to select Quick Audit for a single page, and I'm going to build the checklist. The checklist is now built out, and here I will see that the criteria column no longer contains a link because we're not linking off to specific WCAG criteria. So now that we have a much shorter list of criteria, we can do pre-fill conformance level column. Again, this is going to fill it out for what most commonly happens, and that's based on the how often column. Accessibility statement is usually going to be a content issue. Cookie and privacy policy might be content, might be website add-on, might be both. Proper alt text on images most frequently is content, but it can also have other sources. Proper labels on form inputs. This is typically the website add-on or form plugin, but it could be how it was configured. Proper links and link states. This generally comes to the theme, but it may also be the content, and it may also be from a website add-on, especially if the add-on is ejecting content somewhere within the page. Keyboard focus state is most often a theme issue, but it can have other sources. Page titles and headings is usually content. The content was just not entered well. Color contrast for text can have all sorts of different sources. So I'm just going to mark content. Text sizing with zoom is generally going to be a theme issue. Skip link for keyboard is almost always a theme issue. Navigable menu for keyboard user is frequently a theme issue, may be a website add-on issue, it could even be a content issue. No autoplay, that is normally a content issue. It's content that someone has added and they've set up autoplay. Closed captions and transcript are generally a content issue. The closed captions were not added to the video or the transcript was not put on the page. And a quick screen reader test. All sorts of issues can come up from a quick screen reader test. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Generate Support Report. And under my report, it will give me a quick summary telling me how many different criteria met each conformance level. And then it will have detailed testing notes. And here it has room for us to fill in notes, all I do is I just copy this whole report and put it into my text editor of choice. So hopefully this was helpful, and I hope that you enjoy using the Audit Checklist Builder. Thanks for watching. I'm Jen Harries from the EasyAlley Guide, where we try to make accessibility easier to implement through done-for-you services, tools, and processes. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. It really helps our channel. You can subscribe to our channel for more accessibility tips and to be notified when new videos are released. For more information on web accessibility, including services, tutorials, and more, please visit easyalleyguide.com. Thank you so much again for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.